Hey everybody, welcome to Let's Play Forbidden Island. In this video I'll show you how to play Forbidden Island even if you've never played it before. So just get out your game of Forbidden Island and play along with me. Pause the video wherever you need to play along. So first you need to know the different parts of the game. So here's the island tiles, and we've got treasure cards over here, flood cards, we've got some adventurer cards here. You'll choose to be one of those adventurers. You've got the water level meter here, you've got your adventurer pawns or tokens, and you've got your treasures over here. The first thing we're going to do is take the island tiles, shuffle them, and then place them in a specific pattern. Now you can actually go online and find different patterns, but we're going to use the basic pattern for the game. We will place the tiles face up. Now a quick hint is that you can shuffle the cards or you can just randomly place them out however you in a random order to do the same effect as shuffling. So you can go ahead and pause the video and shuffle your cards, and then I'll show you the pattern. So the easiest way to understand the pattern is it's just a 4x4 grid, and then there's some extra tiles left over, so you just place those random tiles out this way such that there are 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top, 2 on the left, and 2 on the right. So that's the shape that you want. The next thing that you want to do is you want to place the treasures out around the island. This is the way that the game suggests you place them, but of course you can place them wherever you feel best. Now, just real quickly, you might want to take a look at the tiles, and you'll notice that some of them have adventure pawns on them, and some of them have treasure icons on them, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. The next thing that you want to do is shuffle the flood cards. Now you're going to draw 6 to show the island is starting to sink. So the first one you flip over. So here this happens to be Dunes of Deception. So you find that tile on the island. Here is Dunes of Deception, and you turn it over. Now it becomes gray, meaning that it's starting to sink. And you do that for 6 of the cards. Here, Cliffs of Abandon. I take it, I turn it over, and it's starting to sink. Now there's only 1 card for each of the tiles, so in the first 6 cards that you flip over, you're not going to actually have an island portion completely sink. But if another card is drawn, if you draw Cliffs of Abandon a second time, then that card will disappear and come out of the game. So you can pause the video and draw your 6 cards and flip over the tiles. Then you can just put your Forbidden Island cards over to the side with the discard pile. This is the draw pile and then the discard pile. The next thing that you want to do is select your adventurer cards. Each player will get an adventurer. If you're playing solo, then you can actually play 2 adventurers or more, but 2 is a good starting point. Now the rules say that you should randomly shuffle the cards and deal them out to the players. You can, of course, draft the cards if you desire. Each player should become familiar with their adventurer. On one side of the card, it tells you how to play, and on the other side of the card, it tells you the special ability of your adventurer. Each adventurer has a special ability. Go ahead and pause the video to give each player an adventurer card. Next, each adventurer should take a pawn of the appropriate color and put it on the island. Notice that here we have a card. Look for the card that has the same color of the token, and even if the tile has already been flipped over to gray, you can still place your player on that tile. Next, shuffle the treasure cards and deal out 2 cards to each player, and they can turn them face up because this game is a cooperative game. Now, if they get a Waters Rise card, then just take that out, draw another card, and then put the Waters Rise card back into the treasure deck. Next, you set the water level. There's Novice, Normal, Elite, and Legendary. Okay, pause the video, make sure everything's set up, and you're ready to start the game. As you start the game, the player who last visited the island goes first. But if nobody's played, then you can decide who goes first, and play continues around clockwise to the left. If you're already familiar with Forbidden Island and have played before, then just flip over the back of the card to remind yourself of the rules, how many actions to take and what actions can be used. So you can go ahead and get started and have fun playing. If you haven't played before, then I'll walk through a turn or two so that you can see how the game plays. So if you haven't played before, some of the strategy things to be aware of is that there are, for every treasure, there are 2 tiles that have an icon for that. So if one of them sinks, that's not too much of a problem. If both of them sink before you get the icon, then or the treasure, then it's over. Also, you have to make your way back to Fool's Landing. So if that sinks before you have collected all the treasures, then the game is over. Now, for each person's turn, you can take up to 3 actions, and those actions you can move. Now, typically, you can only move vertically or horizontally. You cannot move diagonally, but certain players can. The explorer, for example, can move or shore up diagonally. The pilot can fly to any tile on the island. Most of the actions are pretty obvious. Moving is obvious. Shoring up means to flip a tile over. So a tile that is already flooded can be flipped over back to an unflooded state. That's called shoring up. The one rule that's a little bit, might be a little confusing, is capturing a treasure. So let me explain that a little bit. So in your hand, you will have treasure cards, up to a maximum of 5 cards. Over the game, you will be turning over treasure cards, and you will see some of these cards have treasure pictures on them. That doesn't mean that you get those treasures. It means that it's kind of like a hint, or a clue. And when you get 4 cards of the same treasure type, you can take them to the tile that has that icon, and if you get to that tile, then you can capture the treasure. So since you can only have 5 cards at max in your hand, and you need 4 cards of the same type to actually capture a treasure, a big part of the game is deciding which cards you want to keep, which cards you wish to discard, and which cards you want to trade to another player. So now I'll play 2 quick rounds of the players. Player 1 is the navigator and has these 2 cards. Player 2 is the engineer and has these 2 cards. The navigator has the special ability that they can move another player up to 2 adjacent tiles for 1 action. The engineer can shore up 2 tiles for 1 action. Now, some things to think about as we play this game. These adventurers do not have the special ability to fly like the pilot or to swim through the water like the diver. So we need to make sure that we keep a clear path to all of our places that we want to visit, like Fool's Landing and any of the places where we want to capture treasures. Now, the other thing is we want to think about where is a place that's fairly centrally located to as many treasures as possible. And we see that this tile right here is a very good one, because within 1 move I can get to this lion that represents wind, and this one that represents stone, fire, and ocean up here. So I can easily get to those. So this is probably the area we want to focus on. So if other parts of the island sink, it's not as much of a problem. The only problem here is how do I get back to Fool's Landing, so make sure that there's a clear path there. So what I'm going to do as a navigator, I'm going to take for my first action, I will shore up Gold Gate. And then I'll also shore up Dunes of Deception. I'm going to assume that Cliffs of Abandon is not going to sink, and so I will use my special ability and have the engineer move 2 spaces. It really doesn't matter if the Bronze Gate sinks, and we're moving this engineer closer to the middle. That way, if any of these tiles get flooded, he can shore them up. Now that I've taken my 3 actions, I can draw 2 treasure cards. So these were the cards that I had, and here's the 2 new cards that I draw. So the next thing that we'll do is draw the Forbidden Island cards. We do that by checking the water level. We started at normal, and if you see the colors, as the colors change here, we're still in the 2 card level. So we will draw 2 Forbidden Island cards. So as I draw them, the first one I draw is Breaker's Bridge. And so I will flip that card, here it is right here, and it becomes flooded. And I draw 1 more, and it's the Watchtower. So I find the Watchtower and flip that over. And here's the Watchtower tile that got flipped over here. So it was not already flooded, so it just goes from unflooded to flooded. Now it's the engineer's turn. For For the engineer's turn, he's going to shore up these two tiles here because the engineer's special ability is to shore up tiles. Now you can shore up a tile that you're on or a tile that you're adjacent to, not a diagonal tile, but one that you're adjacent to either horizontally or vertically. So the first action, he will shore up Breaker's Bridge and the Watchtower. On his second action, he'll move to the Watchtower because here I can actually shore up four very important tiles in just one action. Now I could take a third action, but there's really no value to it, so he'll stop with that and now draw the treasure cards. So these are the cards that the engineer has, and they draw the first card. It's Waters Rise. That's the big bad card. The card tells you what to do, but the first thing that we'll do is move up the water level 1 mark. So now, when we have the Forbidden Islands turn go, they will draw 3 cards. The next thing that we'll do is take all of the discarded cards over here and shuffle them up and place them on the top. And this is how it is that we will now have the ability to draw a second tile. We'll have a second card drawn, and it could actually disappear from the game. So after I've placed the shuffled cards on top of the Forbidden Island deck, we take this card and just put it in the discard pile. Now we draw our second card. This is Sandbags. So this is a really nice card because it allows you to shore up any tile on the island at any time. You can play it at any time. So I will just keep that for later. So now we've walked through the essence of the gameplay. So let me just show you one other thing. Here, these cards here, I have just purposely organized them to show you this last part, which is to get to the Cave of Embers in order to collect the fire treasure. So let's imagine that the navigator is at this position right here, and they already have collected 4 fire treasure cards, and so they're trying to get to this tile. And so they can do that, and they get 3 actions, so that's 1, 2, 3, but they can't actually get the treasure here because that takes an action. However, suppose that we were right here, so we could take 1 action to move to this tile. Then we could turn in our 4 treasure cards, again, kind of think of them like clues if you want, and we capture the treasure. So now we have found the fire treasure. And that can be done even if the tile with the treasure icon is flooded. As long as it hasn't disappeared from the game, it's good. Now, remember, after we take our actions, that we need to draw treasure cards. But what happens if I draw the Cave of Embers card while the navigator is on there? Well, this island would sink. That tile would sink, and the player is in the water. They would then have to swim to the adjacent tile. So they could either swim to the Silver Gate or Tidal Palace. Probably best to swim to the Silver Gate. Now let's consider a different situation, and let's assume that there is no tile right up here. There's no tile to the left or behind, and let's assume that the Tidal Palace sinks first, and now the Cave of Embers sinks. Well, there is no adjacent tile to swim to, and so the game is over, except if you have a helicopter lift, you can fly to a tile. Also, if you're a pilot, you can fly to a tile. If you're an explorer, you can swim diagonally. And if you're a diver, you can move through multiple flooded or missing tiles to get to the next tile. Finally, to win the game, the team has to have collected all of the treasures. Then every player must have moved to Fool's Landing, and then you play the helicopter lift card, and everyone can escape from the Forbidden Island. So that's how you play Forbidden Island, and I hope you enjoyed it. Have fun playing.